Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Dylan Evans joins us this morning. He is the Workstream owner at Simple Salt. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to talk to you because, and we'll get to this a little bit later in the segment, but that you help businesses stop internet crime. So I want to start though by going through like how did you get started in this technology field and why? And then how did it lead you up to the point of helping businesses stop internet crime?
Yeah. I started like many people in high school. You do what you're told. You thrive on meeting people's expectations, and mostly the expectations are doing hard things. You get credit for like the AP classes and the sports, and the more hard things you do, the more praised you are. And I fell into this, and I just kept rolling with that. And I found myself in grad school for quantum chemistry, one of the hardest things that I could imagine.
Yeah.
And nobody cared. Like I was there, lab, 11 o'clock at night, calculating copper suborbitals, and the praise had dried up. And I asked myself, what am I doing? I am wasting my life. And so first midlife crisis at 23,
21?
24. Yeah. And
Well, you're efficient, I guess.
and so I just walked into a temp office and got a job doing a hobby, which is like nerd computer stuff. And I loved it. People depended on me. Mm-hmm. I managed a system that cost $40K an hour if it went down.
Oh my.
And people were invested in my success. And that was and invested in me. That was so good. And so after a while of that, I realized I would rather, I got on some projects and some big things, and I realized I would rather be the sort of person who's the most hated person on a successful project than a really well-liked person on a failing project. And the name for the most hated person on a project is project manager. So I did that for almost a decade. And then I got bored with that. And I thought, you know what? I could provide even more value if I helped people select the right products and projects. And that time my career was moving into security, probably because it was hard again. And I have come to realize that most security spend is wasted, at least at public companies. And there's some complex incentives in that world that people outside of it don't recognize. And so they expect things from the security industry and maybe their security department that those people and products are not designed to solve. And so I'm here to clarify that, provide the easy answers for people who want them, and generally demystify security.
Excellent. I do have one thing that I disagree with, though, in your whole dissertation to begin with, and that is that, like in high school, that you are to do what you're told to do. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Well, I should say I agree with you now, but I disagreed with you at the time because I did not do what I was told.
Yes.
And I've mentioned this, I think, once on the podcast before, but I was expelled from no less than 3 high schools for not doing what I was told. Now, I still graduated in 4 years, which is a whole other story in and of itself. But it did teach me self-reliance, resiliency, and also that you have to play within the rules within the system if you want to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. Now, we talked in the beginning about that you help businesses stop internet crime. So I always ask folks at this part of this segment in the podcast what they think is the most significant threat to small and mid-sized businesses out there today.
Uh-huh.
I think you and I would probably agree that falling victim to internet crime is up there. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I would go more specific. I would just say fraud. Boring old fraud, call center fraud. You're going to get defrauded.
Yeah, and it can actually, I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I was actually just the victim of a fraud.
Wow.
I was able to claw the correct amount back per se, and ended up going into a settlement agreement, but it did take some time, and it took time to recognize that what was going on was a fraud. It can be very, very, even for seasoned professionals, it can be hard sometimes to recognize a fraud if it's really well constructed. Mm-hmm. So how do you do it? How do you help businesses stop internet crime?
Sure. All right, Greg, you want to play a game with me?
Absolutely.
All right. So pretend you don't know about security. Pretend you are owner of I don't know, 50 person business, and your buddy just got taken for all he was worth, and you're worried. You want to stop that from happening to you. You do not want to lose your business. You got to do something about the cybers.
No,
what do you do?
Cybers, yeah. What do I do? Okay, so I know nothing about information security or cybersecurity. My focus is that I am a business owner. I got 50 people, you said, underneath me?
Sure. Yeah.
Or whatever. Okay. And if some sort of fraud happens, like what happened to my buddy, then my entire business and livelihood and the livelihood of 50 folks that I'm responsible for go down the toilet. That's the question, right?
Yeah.
So it's a common practice when you don't know how to answer the question initially is that you restate the question while you think. So the hardest part about this question is to get myself out of the information security zone and into the business zone. What do I do? I probably call somebody who knows something about security, which in and of itself might be an issue, because how do I know if I'm calling the right person? I need to understand the threat as a business owner, because as a business owner, I understand now that there's a threat. Business owners deal with risk all the time, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's how they make money. So now I'm a business owner dealing with a risk that I don't know anything about. So somehow or another, I want to educate myself on that risk. That's
in as little time as possible, because you got bills to pay and you got sales to make, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this cannot overwhelm my business. I can't just stop the business right there and do this. It's like you can't just do a mulligan or a reset or anything.
Yeah.
Take a break or something like that.
Yeah. You got one of the three. I get three answers. There's only three answers, and you got one of them. Phone a friend.
Well, that's kind of what my answer was, right?
Phone a friend. Yeah. Okay. Do you want the other two?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a business owner. I don't want to go out of business.
You Google it. Okay. How do I stop the cybers? Right.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Although I wouldn't call it Googling, I'd call it searching on the internet, and I probably would ask ChatGPT, actually.
Yeah, good point. And the third one is you just let your fingers do the walking, right? You go on to Maps or the Yellow Pages or something, and you call up a local cyber firm and ask them to advise you. Pay them a retainer.
So that's probably actually what I suggested. I phone a friend is kind of almost it's the same thing, except for that the cyber advisor is not a friend. It's a business relationship.
Sure, but plenty of people have a strong network and they know somebody. So this is a very popular answer as well. Uh-huh. Now, what people don't recognize is that all of these sources are reading off the same cue cards, which is frameworks.
Yes.
Because, and for those not in the know out there in haven't yet got PTSD from security compliance land, frameworks are long lists of things you should do. And what they what they provide functionally is defensibility. Because everybody knows you don't get good results by checking items off a box, right? That just persuades someone else that you're doing the right thing. And so when you follow a framework, your goal is not so much to stop the crime, but to be able to say, I did what I was supposed to, don't fire me, or maybe defend against the lawsuit should it pop up.
Defensibility, right.
In most industries, like think of beer brewing, defensibility and like effectiveness is mostly the same thing because it doesn't change very fast. But security changes fast. And so the things that were most effective 5 years ago are mostly not effective now. The OTP to the phone, I mean, that's trivially phishable, right? You just man in the middle it. And you can buy commodity software for pretty cheap on crime forums that does all that for you. OTPs, even if it's a second factor, don't provide much help.
And for the challenged out there trying to figure out what OTP is, it's a one-time password, correct?
Yeah. You get that little code on your phone, they text you and they say, don't send this to anybody.
Right. And don't tell anybody you got this. Like it's this huge secret.
Yeah, that stopped working 2 years ago.
I'm going to interject for a second.
Yeah, hit it.
I'm sensing that where you're going with this is that we're, as an industry, potentially focusing on something wrong by focusing on frameworks. So I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
No.
Okay. Well, then I would.
It's not wrong, but it's gonna sound wrong. Because if you think of the security leadership at public companies, at Fortune 500s, at highly regulated industries, their risk of getting blamed is higher than the material losses of actual crime. Mm-hmm. And so for them, that is the correct priority. They frameworks. They care more about building trust with their regulators, building trust with their customers. These are things that are done by checking off boxes and buying fancy hardware that fits in Gartner quadrants.
Right.
But if you are a smaller business, if you have a business of 50, your priorities are completely reversed.
Yes.
Unless you're in a highly regulated industry. But most small businesses have much higher threat from practical fraud, practical business closure, than they will from getting in trouble. They're never going to get to the point of defending against the lawsuit because they're still arguing with their insurance company to pay them the money they think they're owed. And meanwhile, they've laid off half their staff.
Right. And then, of course, as you lay off some of your staff, then you decrease in productivity, which results in decrease in revenue, and you start this downward spiral.
Yeah. So
what's the answer?
Well, the answer is to recognize the incentive. I mean, there's good answers, but they're not on a checklist because there are cheap and easy ways to stop crime, but they don't look the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because what crime is, what you need to worry about is what is important to you. And then on the other side of the Venn diagram, what is important or what is likely to get attacked. That little overlap is what you need to focus on. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to secure everything. And often the most effective, the biggest bang for your buck are simple changes to process in how you do risky activities. How do you pay bills? How do you send bills? Right? Imagine the situation where maybe you're the CEO again. Your email is broken into because you got better things to do than remember complicated passwords that change every 30 days.
Right.
And you've been using the same one for 10 plus years.
And you've directed your IT folks to exempt you from any sort of policies like that because you're the CEO.
Right. And you just need control. You have a lot of stuff to do and you need it fast. And you don't need any of this like red tape getting in the way.
Right. You're there to run a business. You don't want any of this friction stuff. No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens? Someone breaks into your account, they watch for a month, and then they send a fake invoice to your best customer for maybe double the average monthly invoice. They're going to pay it. It's going to go to the wrong bank account, and maybe you'll recover some of it, but you might not. U.S. banks are only required to give you 24 hours to report fraud for them to claw it back. Who keeps track of their books?
No.
Within 24 hours, they know if a transaction is fraudulent.
Yeah, no, it's almost impossible to catch at that point in time. Because to your point, again, the business owner and the business executives, they're in the business of running the business. How many times can I say business in a sentence? I tried for a record break. But they're not focused on these little things because it's just supposed to work.
Right.
So, but yet we as an industry, a security industry, we preach that well, you have to follow this framework and you have to do this and you have to do that. And yet now I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You're saying that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if that's your focus, you're not really focusing on where your highest risk is, that where the Venn diagram where the two overlap.
Right.
What can we as an industry do to change our attitude to help small and mid-sized businesses with that perspective?
Sure. That is a heck of a question. I am not sure.
And I'll preface that by saying that I've been sort of on a soapbox evangelistic tour the last 2 years, if you will. My postulation is that we as an industry, for lack of a better word, we suck at helping small and mid-sized businesses with information security. A self-promotion here. I'm speaking about that at the Southeast Cyber Summit in Birmingham, Alabama, in just a few weeks. And I've spoken about it at other conferences before. And that's sort of my open-ended question. Why, okay, let me kind of reframe this the other way. The way that I've been framing it in these talks is that if you go to any conference, right, and you look at all of the presentations that are out there,
yep,
and then you also look at all of the vendors that are on the trade floor, it's a
one-to-one match.
Yes, the commonality is that they're looking at technical solutions to help bigger businesses solve problems. You see almost nothing related to small and mid-sized businesses. And it pisses me off.
What you do see is snake oil, right?
Yes, for the most part, except for when I talk.
Yeah, well, but like in terms of product, if you see a product marketed at small businesses, it's usually like a blinking box that sits in your closet and does cyber magic for you.
Or they come up with promises that are just unrealistic. I was at the National Cyber Summit in Huntsville, Alabama. There's a commonality here because I'm in the Southeast. Last fall, and I restrained myself from reacting when I passed the vendor booth that promised that no matter where you were at, you can have CMMC compliance level 2 within 6 months. I'm like, that's the snake oil that you're talking about, I think. Right there.
Well, yeah, I'm strongly resisting the temptation to go down that rabbit hole, but
I know we only have a few minutes, so it's
the cyber industry has incentives, and it has the way it makes money, the way it's used to making money. It's got plenty of VC behind it. I think it's working. It's honestly working. The problem is that a whole bunch of people expect something different of it. That's the problem. Now, I think the reason I say I don't know the answer to this question is because, like you, I'm trying to solve it. Right? There's easy answers. You stay in the security industry 10 years and you figure it out. I mean, it's not about encryption. It's about tokenization before it even gets in the database. And on, and basically doing less stuff with risky stuff. And the practical application of that principle is where the value is. I think helping people in the space where they're at is the most winning strategy, whether you work in a Fortune 500 or whether you're just advising your uncle. Mm-hmm. We preach to people. We judge people. We are the department of no. We are not helpers. Right. We are not like letting them be the heroes. We are worried about getting blamed. And nobody should care about security, right? What chutzpah to say, oh, my department, what I care about is very important. So it must be important to all you guys. So you have to do training, and I'm going to test you, and you have to read these policies. No, that has never worked in the history of ever. What you need to do, if you want to truly stop crime, if you want true results, recognize that everybody has a different priority than you. Doctor's going to doctor. Like accountant's going to worry about the books. And maybe priority number 4 is security, but only in the sense that it intersects what they care about. So make the secure path the easy path. Don't try to block up the river. No, dig a channel where you want the river to go. And then you won't have to spend as much time building dams. And when the floods come, you know, people are smart. They are endlessly creative at getting around like your walls in front of what you don't want.
I like it. I like it. And that gets back then to the let the business focus on their business. And we don't think sometimes as security folks, we take the approach that we're trying to make everybody be security professionals. And that's really not sustainable. And it's an interesting way to look at it. I used to work with someone who was a risk manager for a bank. And he said he wanted to implement the idea of everybody being a risk manager motif for every employee. And I see value in that, but you can't rely upon that as your strategy. Mm-hmm. You can't expect everybody to become experts in your field. They have their own job to do, is what I'm hearing.
Sure. Yeah. So do you remember FAIR and Risk Lens? Doesn't get as much press as it used to.
Yes, I'm actually FAIR certified, but I haven't practiced. I haven't done a quantitative risk assessment in a little bit of time. I have to admit. So
I think the security industry hoped for so much from FAIR, but ultimately, I'm going to bash it, and you can argue. Please do. I think it lost credibility because CISOs were promised, we're going to provide you a quantitative, like it's almost like a P&L, right? Except of risk. And you can show it to the executives and you can say, this department is going to cost you this much in losses, cyber losses per year, this one. And boards loved it.
Mm-hmm. Except.
But when the board started asking questions, like, okay, well, where are these numbers from? All you could say is, the magic box told me. And
yeah,
because most people relied on Risk Lens for their analysis.
Right, and that's the problem. If you relied upon risk lens, or if you relied upon, I didn't never use risk lens, but the problem with FAIR is that it's still ultimately based on subjective opinion. You have to make you have to do a qualitative assessment in some way, and you can make FAIR. Unfortunately, you can make FAIR analysis tell whatever story you want to. So what I always tell people is that if you're going to, I know we're on a tangent, we're kind of going a little bit longer on time, but that's okay. I want to, since you mentioned FAIR, I want to get this in. What I used to tell people is that, and I still do, if you're going to use FAIR to analyze one particular technology, let's just say you're thinking about using technology X, you think that you know that it's going to cost $50,000 a year. Can you tell me if that's higher or lower than what FAIR would call our cost exposure? So you run the numbers and you see that your cost exposure is actually $100,000 a year. So that's great. Okay, it seems like it's a no-brainer. Spend $50,000 on the tool and I'm going to lower my cost exposure. Except what you need to do is that in addition to providing the numbers to the board, is that you have to provide them with your assumptions and why you made them and how it affected the model. You have to be completely transparent on the whole thing. And then that's where it all breaks down. Because yes, CISOs thought that it's like, we could just take this model, bring it in. The board, they want things real fast. They want like financial statements to examine, but you can't do that with risk with so many unknown quantities. So I do agree with you. I mean, I like the FAIR taxonomy. I like the methodology, but it breaks if you don't explain its limitations.
Right. So another plug, this is our really unfair advantage at Simple
Nice
Salt.
pun.
Yes. Oh man, I didn't even catch that. We do FAIR, but we don't call it FAIR because we don't want the baggage of people having experienced FAIR. But we go into a business and we ask them a couple thousand questions up and down the business saying, how much revenue would you lose if this happened? How much would it cost your IT department? How much would you spend on a PR agency? And in part, this is what FAIR was supposed to be. But the other advantage of doing it really rigorously this way is that the only way it's going to survive is if when the VP asks their direct reports, like, this is crazy. Do you guys believe these numbers? The only answer that's ever going to work is yes. Those answers came from me and my team. We'd been working on it over February, right? That's where you get good credibility and good transparency through an organization. And it takes us.
And that's exactly what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
You have to explain the assumptions and the inputs into the model, because a model is just going to model. I mean, it's going to model. But if you do the legwork to find out those numbers, nothing's going to be able to predict, everything, but you can at least have something to make good decisions there. So, well, this has been a great discussion, but I need to pivot because I'm getting stressed out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because we're having such a great discussion, and I know we're going to end up going longer. Plus, we had a little blip. If anybody noticed that little blip earlier, we had a communications drop. I don't mind saying that. It's like it's the internet. It happens. But it stresses me out sometimes. And sometimes anything with information security, cybersecurity, it can be a very stressful industry. There are people out there right now that are enduring stress because they're trying to find jobs, for example. And I encourage people that they need to do something to de-stress that is not destructive. What's one of the things you do to help de-stress from all the stresses of information security?
You're not going to like this. I don't have something to de-stress, but I solved this problem like 6 years ago. I root caused it. Mm-hmm. And the root cause that I found out, the reason I think CISOs burn out faster than any other exec is that they are faced with an impossible expectation. It's their fault if any bad thing happens. And so they have to like basically police a whole organization.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an absurd expectation.
Yes.
But people have absurd expectations. This is the world. The key to not getting all burnt out for me was to recognize, like say out loud to myself, that person has unrealistic expectations of me. And if they get mad because I don't meet them, that's not a problem I can solve. And we get tremendous pressure to stop all the bad things.
We can't.
We can't. We're a team of techno nerds and compliance analysts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we're a cost center. We get pressure every year to reduce. You think we can stop all the bad things. So instead of, like, I feel we're slowly emerging from this turtle shell of defensibility and saying, don't yell at me. No. Be a partner. Be honest. Say, I don't know. But I would like to help you with your priorities as in the capacity that I can. Step into their world and create good instead of trying to avoid bad.
I love it. Yeah, that'll go a long way to de-stressing for sure, and expectation management can help with that. Well, what future plans you got coming down now that you're solving all of these problems in the world? What other world problems are you going to solve?
I find myself moving into inspirational speaking. We're building at Simple Salt. We've got radical culture goals. And iterating on that maturity is so much fun. Like, it's more fun than security. I'll be straight. And it is so rewarding. And I can see my next step, 10 years, 20 years. I will have polished that and I will be able to explain it to other people who want to build something similar.
Well, awesome. Then we have to have you back 10 to 20 years from now so that we can talk about that. Hopefully it won't be that long. But Dylan, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. I love the path that we went down. You triggered a passion in me that we didn't really talk about this beforehand, except that yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that you said in the beginning that I might say things that you don't agree with, and you go ahead and push back if you want. And I said, oh, wow, I absolutely push back, but I agree with everything you say. So,
except for that first part about high school.
Except about high school, yeah.
This is true.
Like, I mean, you didn't get thrown out of high school, but I did. But that's okay. It's all good.
I just didn't tell you that part.
Well, I appreciate you spending time with us this morning. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Awesome, Greg.
And everybody, if I can find the roll here, everybody stay secure.